Most Christians don't know God hid 7 healing foods in the Bible, named by chapter and verse 3,000 years before modern medicine existed. They're sitting in your kitchen right now, and modern science is finally proving why Scripture got it right. Number 1 was tested in the largest dietary trial ever conducted, 7,447 participants over 5 years, and reduced major cardiovascular events by 30%. Number 2 contains a compound modern longevity researchers can't stop studying. And when scientists analyzed the entire list together as a single system, they found something even stranger. Exactly what Scripture had already promised 3 millennia ago. Now, Deuteronomy chapter 8, verse 8, 7 foods. Most people read it and miss it. Today we're going through every single one and what modern science has discovered about each. Deuteronomy chapter 8 records Moses speaking to the Israelites just before they enter the Promised Land. He's describing what they're about to inherit, and he doesn't speak in vague terms about abundance. Verse 8 becomes oddly specific. The Hebrew text lists them by name: wheat, barley, vines, fig trees, pomegranates, olive oil, and honey, which traditional Jewish interpretation reads as date honey from the date palm, listed in a single verse, not as poetry, as a deliberate enumeration. For 3,000 years, Jewish tradition has called these the Shiv'at HaMinim, the 7 species. The Mishnah, codified around the year 200, devotes entire passages to specific blessing rules for these foods. The annual holiday of Tu B'Shavat, the new year of the trees, celebrates them by name. Archaeological evidence from Iron Age Israelite households shows these exact foods stored together in clay vessels, processed together, eaten together. So we're not interpreting Scripture loosely. We're describing a real, documented food system that an entire civilization treated as foundational for over 3 millennia. What nutritional research has discovered is that these foods, eaten as a system, form one of the most complete medicinal matrices ever recorded. The Mediterranean diet that doctors prescribe today is essentially a rediscovery of this exact food list. Let's go through them one at a time. Then we're going to look at what happens when you put them back together. Number 7, wheat, the grain Moses named first. Wheat appears in Deuteronomy 8:8 because ancient Israelite agriculture was built around it. Every household had wheat. Every meal had wheat. The grain was so central, Scripture named it first. But what researchers have isolated is specific. Whole wheat, not the refined flour in modern bread, contains a fiber called arabinoxylan, plus bran-bound polyphenols not found in white flour. Long-running cohort research has linked regular whole grain consumption to lower LDL cholesterol, improved gut microbiome diversity, and slower glucose absorption. Major Mediterranean diet trials of the late 1990s associated whole grain-centered diets with significantly lower cardiovascular mortality compared to standard Western diets. But the wheat in your supermarket isn't this wheat. Modern dwarf varieties are bred for yield, not nutrition. To get the actual benefits, you need traditional whole grain wheat, stone ground, unbleached, untouched by modern industrial processing. Number 6, barley, the grain that fed the prophets. Barley appears throughout Scripture, most famously in 2 Kings, where the food multiplied during famine to feed 100 men. It was Israel's secondary staple, often eaten when wheat was scarce. The active compound in barley is beta-glucan, a soluble fiber the FDA has formally approved as cardiovascular protective. Multiple clinical trials have demonstrated that 3 grams of beta-glucan daily reduces LDL cholesterol by approximately 7% within weeks. It also slows glucose absorption, stabilizing blood sugar after meals. The mechanism is precise. Beta-glucan binds to bile acids in the gut, forcing the liver to pull cholesterol from circulation to manufacture more bile. It's the same target statins hit pharmacologically, but barley delivers it through food. Whole hulled barley, soaked overnight, slow cooked. Pearled barley loses much of the active fiber. Buy it whole, not refined. Number 5, figs, the fruit Jesus searched for and didn't find. Figs appear repeatedly in Scripture. Jeremiah, Hosea, the famous cursed fig tree in Matthew. They were a daily food in ancient Israel, eaten fresh in season and dried for the rest of the year. The science is specific. Figs are unusually rich in soluble fiber, about 5 grams per 100 grams of dried fruit. That fiber slows glucose absorption and feeds beneficial gut bacteria. Figs also supply more bioavailable calcium per gram than most plant foods, along with potassium, magnesium, and vitamin K. The polyphenols, concentrated in dark fig skin, have shown antioxidant activity in laboratory research, with measurable effects on inflammatory markers in preliminary clinical studies. Practical use: 3 or 4 dried figs daily, with the skin intact. Avoid figs preserved with sulfur dioxide or candied with added sugar. Fresh figs in season are nutritionally denser still. Number 4. Dates. The fruit the Hebrew word honey most likely refers to. In Deuteronomy 8:8, the word translated as honey most likely means date honey, concentrated date syrup. Date palms were ubiquitous in ancient Israel. The Jericho region was so famous for them that Roman writers called it the City of Palms. Clinical research has caught up. Dates supply potassium for blood pressure regulation, magnesium for hundreds of enzymatic reactions, and a unique combination of glucose and fructose buffered by fiber that blunts the glucose spike. Clinical trials published in the Journal of Obstetrics and Gynecology in 2011 and replicated since have associated regular date consumption in late pregnancy with shorter labor and reduced need for medical intervention. Dates are also rich in polyphenols and tannins, with documented antioxidant activity in laboratory research. 3 to 5 medjool dates daily, stuffed with almonds or walnuts to slow absorption further, the way the desert ate them. Number 3. Grapes. The fruit Noah planted as his first act after the flood. Grapes appear hundreds of times in Scripture. The vine is one of the most theologically loaded images in the Bible. Israelites ate grapes fresh, dried them as raisins, and fermented them as wine. Longevity researchers have spent 2 decades studying a compound that survives in dark grape skins: resveratrol. It activates a class of proteins called sirtuins, sometimes called longevity genes, which regulates cellular repair and metabolic function. Animal studies have demonstrated lifespan extension in multiple model organisms. Human research has linked resveratrol to improved insulin sensitivity, reduced inflammatory markers, and protected cardiovascular function. Grape skins also supply proanthocyanidins, compounds that may help protect collagen and elastin from the breakdown that drives visible aging across decades. Eat them whole. Skin and seeds, dark varieties. The medicine lives in the parts most people throw away. Number 2. Pomegranates. The fruit carved into Solomon's temple. Solomon's temple had 200 carved pomegranates on its pillars. The high priest's robe was decorated with pomegranates in blue, purple, and scarlet thread. This fruit was woven into the most sacred architecture in the ancient world. The compound is called urolithin A. Pomegranates are one of the very few foods on Earth that produce it in meaningful quantities, once digested by the gut microbiome. Urolithin A activates a cellular cleanup process called mitophagy, the body's system for removing damaged mitochondria and replacing them with healthy ones. Healthy mitochondria mean cellular energy. Cellular energy means slower biological aging. This is one of the most active research areas in longevity science right now. Clinical studies on pomegranate juice have demonstrated reductions in blood pressure, LDL oxidation, and inflammatory markers. The polyphenol concentration in pomegranate outranks red wine, green tea, and blueberries. And now, number 1, olives. The most studied food in the Mediterranean diet, and the food Scripture mentions over 140 times. Research returns to one specific compound, oleocanthal. It was identified by a scientist named Gary Beauchamp and published in the journal Nature in 2005. Oleocanthal inhibits the same inflammation enzymes as ibuprofen, but without the gastric side effects. But the real evidence is the trial data. PREDIMED, published in the New England Journal of Medicine in 2013, enrolled 7,447 high-risk patients across Spain. The variable being tested was a Mediterranean diet supplemented with extra virgin olive oil. After 4.8 years, the olive oil group showed a 30% reduction in major cardiovascular events. The trial was stopped early on ethical grounds. Researchers couldn't justify continuing to feed the control group the inferior diet. A tablespoon a day on real food, cold-pressed, extra virgin, the version with the throat burn. So that's all 7. Wheat, barley, figs, dates, grapes, pomegranates, olives. Each one with its own research base, its own compound, its own mechanism. But here's where the story gets stranger. When researchers analyzed them together, not as individual items, but as a system, they found something modern medicine has been trying to recreate for 50 years. In 2013, the PREDIMED trial we just covered was published in the New England Journal of Medicine. It enrolled 7,447 high-risk patients across Spain and randomized them to one of 3 diets. The variable being tested, a Mediterranean diet rich in olive oil, whole grains, fruits, and legumes, essentially the Deuteronomy 8:8 list with 2 minor additions. The result: after 4.8 years, the Mediterranean diet group showed a 30% reduction in major cardiovascular events compared to the low-fat control. The trial was so conclusive, it was stopped early. But why does this combination work? It's not magic. The mechanisms are now mapped. Wheat and barley together provide complementary amino acids, lysine from one, methionine from the other, forming a more complete protein matrix than either grain alone. Olives supply monounsaturated fat that increases the bioavailability of fat-soluble compounds in the figs, dates, and pomegranates. Grapes contribute resveratrol, which targets the same anti-inflammatory pathways as olive oil's oleocanthal, but through a different enzyme. Dates supply potassium and slow-release carbohydrates that prevent the glucose spikes that drive cellular aging. The 7-country study, started by the American researcher Ansel Keys in 1958, was the first large-scale evidence that Mediterranean populations had dramatically lower cardiovascular mortality. 50 years of research has converged on the same answer. 3,000 years ago, Scripture named 7 foods. Modern science spent 50 years rediscovering the same list. 7 foods. 3,000 years of accumulated evidence. Modern molecular science slowly catching up to what Scripture had already recorded. Picture your kitchen 10 weeks from now. Whole grain barley in your morning bowl, fresh grapes and figs on the counter, pomegranate seeds on your salad, olive oil over everything, medjool dates instead of refined sugar. The same plants, the same compounds, used the way they were originally meant to be used. But quality matters. Most modern wheat is bleached and processed. Most olive oil is blended with cheaper seed oils. Most pomegranate juice is reconstituted from concentrate. The plants only do their work when the chemistry is intact. Buy whole, buy raw, buy as close to the form Scripture named as you can. Drop a comment. Which one are you starting with? I read every reply. Hit subscribe. Next week, we go into the biblical herbs most Christians have never heard of. God didn't just give us a promised land. He gave us a pharmacy, and modern science is finally proving him right.